All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Elise Bordolato, and I am the program manager for the Emerging Enterprise Center, which is a nonprofit business incubator here in Wilmington, Delaware. So we recently began sharing startup stories of Delaware entrepreneurs. One, to showcase the work and innovation that's happening here in Delaware. And two, to share personal journeys and advice from different founders to hopefully inspire and help aspiring and or current entrepreneurs. So today we are very excited to be joined by Bruce Rushton, who is the growth coach of Northern Delaware, to hear his startup story. Welcome, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Elise.
Absolutely. So I'm actually really excited today to talk to you. Well, one, you're going to kind of tell people a little bit about yourself and why you started your business. And I think that your business and what you're working on really speaks to what a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs are going through today. So for those who are not completely familiar with your work, can you just share in a brief sentence or two a little bit about who you are and what your company does?
Sure. So the Growth Coach of Northern Delaware is a business coaching and consulting company serving Delaware. So we work with small and medium-sized businesses to help them grow their business, to ensure sustained behavioral change, and to drive that increased business performance. And so, companies and business leaders, they come to us when they want to intentionally grow their business through strategic planning, wildly important goal identification and execution, and employee training and development. And so I love this phrase. It really sums up what my company is all about. If you are not intentionally preparing for growth, you are unintentionally preparing for decline. And so at the Growth Coach, that's what we do. We're here helping businesses intentionally prepare for growth.
Well, that's cool. So I've been doing these like Monday motivation. So after this, I'm going to make sure to write that down because I think that will be a nice Monday motivation quote, because I feel like that is a very, I think, strong way of saying why your work's important.
Absolutely.
So I also like to talk, so not what your business is, because I think that is important, but I think what's more important is the person behind the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we were just chatting before we went live about where you're from and where you grew up. I'm also from Ohio and the Cleveland area. So if you want to just share a little about, where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in Youngstown, Ohio. That's an old steel town. And so Youngstown is in that Northeast Ohio area, not that far from Cleveland. In fact, it's halfway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, just on the border of the Pennsylvania-Ohio line. And so I grew up there, was one of 9 children in the home, and my dad was an entrepreneur, right? And so we had a company that did asphalt paving and cement driveways and walkways and trash removal.
And so I grew up in the Cleveland area too. We were just saying that we both had Ohio State connections.
Yeah.
So with him being an entrepreneur, do you think is there anything that you still kind of carry with you today in your business when you think about how he ran his business?
Absolutely. I mean, it's what inspired me, right? This is what inspired me to own my own business. It's what I grew up seeing. My dad was able to provide for his entire family through these business efforts. My mother didn't work for a long time until my dad got sick later on in life. And so that was no small task for him to, be this entrepreneur, to run these businesses and do it successfully. It was definitely inspiring watching him do that. So I think at an early age, I'm one of the youngest of the 9. At an early age, I knew that this was probably a path for me, was to, start a business, run a business, and do those type of things to help, provide for my family. So definitely inspired by my dad.
Yeah, I do feel like I think there's something to being able to, something that I think is important is being able to see the fact you saw your dad. I think people need those kind of role models to kind of see the possibilities and learn from. And one thing We just got a comment. So the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce, which the Emerging Enterprise Center is a part of, just wanted to give you a little shout out for being a chamber ambassador and also a great asset as a chamber member.
Yeah.
So with that, I also want to encourage anyone who is tuning in today to make sure to put any questions you have for Bruce in our comments. We'll make sure to address those as we go along. So we're kind of talking a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur and take that leap into business ownership, which is a big leap for a lot. And with that, I was actually wondering, being a business owner and then having to kind of pivot during the pandemic has caused a lot of businesses to really learn from the moment. Is there anything you felt like you have learned or taken away from this moment as a business owner going through the pandemic and really having to drastically pivot? Or is there anything you've done to drastically pivot?
Yeah. I mean, last year was tough on businesses. I mean, it was really tough on businesses in a lot of industries. COVID produced some unique challenges, and most businesses had to pivot. So we'll certainly look back on 2020 as a unique business case study for sure. And so, but my business was no different. My business, it's a relationship business. And so when things began to shut down, our opportunity to meet new business owners and professionals, that was kind of limited. The traditional networking events were non-existent. Those in-person speaking engagements and workshops that I was, trying to do and scheduled to do, a lot of that stuff was canceled. And so the good news for my business was, I've been using these virtual meeting and webinar platforms for years, right, in corporate organizations where I used to work over the last 2 decades. So I had a lot of familiarity with, the likes of Zoom and the different platforms that we use now. So, but what I learned from this moment is you have to be nimble and ready for change, right? You have to plan for change. Change is a constant in life. And so the companies that adjust and get through the change curve the fastest are usually the ones that emerge from a crisis better than when they went in. So those are some of the things that, and just kind of looking back, and I'm still learning them as we go through, right? So just being nimble and ready for change, because it's coming, whether we want it to or not.
And I actually, so something that is maybe particularly different about your business, is it my understanding that the Growth Coach is kind of a brand and you're part of you kind of have your own business within that brand?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything, I find that, I think a lot of people who potentially are interested in starting a business might be particularly interested in how you chose, you not only finding your why and what you wanted to do, but then how you found the brand that would, your advice on like being part of a brand or a franchise or something that kind of maybe helps you with that establishment and or starting from, scratch. Do you have any feelings?
Yeah. So the Growth Coach is a franchise. There are numerous Growth Coach franchisees across this country, across the world. And I chose this path because, when I was thinking about when I left DuPont Pioneer shortly after the Dow-DuPont merger, and thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always wanted, like I said before, I always wanted to start my own business. And so I started thinking about, am I going to move on to other positions or, just kind of stay out here and start my own business? And then you think about, okay, what are the things I love doing? And so everything that I'm doing right now in my Growth Coach business, these are things that I love doing and have been doing for a long time, work for 2 Fortune 500 companies. And so the only question was how I was going to start this business and start from scratch and start building out, programs and content and things like that. And for me, that's a tall task. And so when you're trying to decide whether or not to go the traditional startup route or partner with a franchisor and partner with them, the decision was pretty easy with me to go with the growth coach because we were really aligned in how we like to do things. A lot of the programs and things that they were running were things that I was already familiar with and doing in corporate. And their values and the way they approach things like sales training and management training and just leadership in general, those were things that I valued and things that I approached it the same way. So it was really an easy decision for me to partner with the growth coach and start this business up here in Delaware. The goal is always to just help businesses succeed. In their motto is they just do it one community at a time. And so it's really not this business, this thing that we're trying to go conquer the world, on a large scale. It's really about Delaware for me and this community, right? And doing things here to help the businesses succeed here. So.
And do you feel like being under that brand, you still feel like you have a lot of independence to kind of make it a little bit of your own?
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. What they bring to the table is just a lot of support for me, right? And so they support me, they provide me with the resources to be successful, but everything that I do is really tailored to the businesses here and tailored by me. And so I have complete autonomy to work with the businesses the way I see fit in this area. But at the same time, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of marketing support, a lot of, my website, just a lot of things like that. And just having a large network produces a better buying power for me when I'm looking to, get materials and things for my clients. And in turn, I can pass those savings on to my clients. Because as you know, a lot of small businesses, one of the things that worries them the most is that cash flow, the funding piece of it. So.
Well, so that actually kind of goes to one of the questions that I was going to ask. A lot of startups do have funding is always on the top of their mind. Is there anything that you did at the start of your business to ensure the success, either through having just making sure that you kind of had those set clients already in the kind of waiting in the wing before you started, or was there any kind of funding streams that you looked to, either personal or outside, to make sure that you could grow fast as you wanted?
Yeah, well, I started the business and I had 0 clients. Let's just be clear on that. And the thing about my business is, I'm new to Delaware. I've been here for about 7.5 years. And so I was not really ingrained in the business community. And so it took a lot of time for me to really get into the community, get to know, the business community, get to know the people. And this is a relationship business. And so starting out, didn't have those clients. And what I was able to do was to kind of look at the funding piece from, the franchise helped me with that, right? So funding for small businesses is tough to acquire. And so when I started, I went the typical route of contacting some larger banks that I already had personal relationships with. And unfortunately, those banks, they really didn't want to partner with me on this venture. And so my business, being a franchise, I went back to them and said, okay, well, what relationships do you have out here or best practices to help, get started, get that initial funding? They kind of pointed me in the right direction. I was able to connect with a smaller regional bank to secure a SBA 7A loan to start my business. So that's kind of how we got started. Without that, it would have been a little tough.
Was there anything, if you were to put the kind of finger on one or two things that you felt like you did at the beginning that really did help kind of propel your brand forward or your business forward? Is there anything, that little snowball, you start doing these little actions and then all of a sudden there's a big snowball rolling down. Is there anything you feel like you could pinpoint?
Yeah, so my business really started to take off once I started attending a lot of networking events. Like I said, not really ingrained in the business community. So attending a lot of those networking events with other small business owners was key. So in my business, the services and products are not quick sales. I'm not selling a widget, right? What I mean by that is it takes some time before business owners and executives feel comfortable and hire us. As I mentioned before, this relationship business. So we have to take the time to build those relationships. So the more we network, the more we get to know members of the business community and they get to know us. So that's why we joined several chambers in the area, including the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. It's one of the reasons why, as mentioned before, I'm an ambassador with the Newcastle County Chamber of Commerce. It's really just all about getting involved with the business community and helping out wherever we can. So it was definitely a snowball effect, because as we began to partner with businesses, other businesses would ask about our client success, with the programs and things like that. And so the more we work with companies, the more people asked about their success, the more they felt comfortable hiring us as well. So it really started with those networking efforts. And so I tell all business owners, you have to get involved. You have to get involved with the community, get involved with the chamber. Don't just sign up for the chamber. Get involved, go to the events, meet some people. You never know who you're going to meet and talk to that can, either help you in one way or the other, just by giving you a little bit of information, talking about their best practices, things that they've learned along the way. Now, I've met some phenomenal people. Some of my official mentors, I call them, are people in the chamber, that I've met, back when I first started this company.
I can't, you really truly are kind of a great example for, how you can use membership and networking to build your business. And I know that we here at the Emerging Enterprise Center have just started conversations too with you about next year and how we can partner together on a program, which hopefully we'll be able to announce soon once we get all the details kind of going, so we can really, like you said, get those partnerships, get yourself more out in the community, get in front of the people that you want to get in front of. So with that, I know that we have a question here on Facebook, and I feel like it's one of the questions I generally ask. So something that kind of is like, what kind of keeps you up at night as a business owner? What are some of the fears that you feel like you have to work on overcoming, or how do you overcome them?
Well, my thoughts are always on my clients' businesses. When we start working for a client, we become part of that business, right? So their struggles become our struggles. Their opportunities and challenges become our opportunities and challenges. And so often I find myself thinking through some of that late at night or early in the morning when I get up. But let me be clear, Elise, nothing really keeps me up at night, because I value my sleep. I try to get 8 hours every night, but I do think about that stuff a lot, and, there's a lot of challenges that businesses face. And so, and I'm no different, right? I'm helping small businesses, but I'm a small business as well. And so a lot of those challenges, and those fears come in, but, that the feelings of fear that sometimes arise from challenges, like, when you're trying to scale the business, or you're trying to get some cash flow, you're looking at your competitors, right? That can be overwhelming. That can be overwhelming for some people. The way I work past this is the same way I tell my clients to. I tell them to face reality, right? So facing reality is the first step in the strategic mindset process that I teach. And so it's all about looking in the mirror and doing an honest self-evaluation of the situation, shifting your mindset. And so fear is a choice, right? You ever seen the movie, The Shawshank Redemption?
I did.
So there's a line in that movie where Tim Robbins tells Morgan Freeman, it's all about choices. And so he says, you have to either get busy living or get busy dying. And sometimes that's what it all boils down to, that choice of whether or not you're going to move forward or stay stuck. And it all starts with that self-evaluation.
I also feel like, because you kind of said it before, that you help small businesses, but you are a small business. So I can already see how that could even help you become a better coach, because you can fully understand some of the pieces that small businesses go through on a personal level, just to help them overcome through your coaching. So I was kind of going, as we're going talking, I was thinking too, um, like when you talk about scaling, do you have any, do you have a team? How do you see scaling in your business? How have you scaled?
Yeah, well, we are in the process of scaling, and scaling is one of the scariest things for a lot of the clients I talk to because they all, and I'm going to use a quote here, right? Because I hear it from so many of them, they say, oh man, I don't know about hiring because it's a headache. And I get what they're saying. It's a headache because it's a tough thing. Once you start hiring people and you're scaling the business and you're growing and now you got to add more people, there's just another layer of complexity that goes along with that. And so for us, we've been scaling. I started the business almost 3 years ago. It's not the only business I have. I have another business that's about 5.5 years old as well. So kind of doing dual duty here, running two companies. But the first hire that I made for the growth coach business was I hired a marketing associate. Right, I decided I needed to have help managing the day-to-day activities associated with growing the growth coach brand here in Delaware. So last summer, in the midst of COVID, we started to hire. We decided to hire for that position. So, I believe you have to prepare for this type of stuff, scaling, right, ahead of time, right? It's a huge commitment for you to lead not just a solopreneur type organization, but when you start adding people, adding services, growing, it becomes another level of leadership. But if you look at the way that large Fortune 500 companies hire, they have already decided what positions will be necessary for success, right? What the expectations are for those positions, who reports to who, and what each person is going to be accountable for. So to prepare for my new role as we scale, I just, and it's the same thing I tell my clients. I just re-engineered what large companies have done and began to work backwards, right? So we build an org chart for what the company is going to look like in the future and put all of those positions on there. And then we defined all of the roles and crafted these position agreements for each role. Now, right, and you do all of this before you even hire. Now, when the time is right to expand and scale, you already know what you're looking for and what these individuals are going to be doing, what they're going to be accountable for, and how they're going to help carry out the vision of the company. So it's all about doing that work ahead of time. This is the difficulty in having a small business. I tell it to my clients, but I have to go through the same thing, right? So now I have to find time to do this foundational work of building this organization, structure out and being ready for it, right? You can't scale if you're not ready. A lot of people jump in and they have these mistakes or headaches, as they call them, because they weren't ready. They weren't ready. They didn't know what that person was going to do. They didn't know any of that. And so you have to do that work ahead of time.
I think that is such good advice for those who are considering scaling or who are new business, maybe just themselves, and really thinking about, what a team would look like. And I think it's key that they're hearing that you have to kind of put in that kind of foundational work beforehand and figuring out what positions you truly need to complement yourself and what your business needs, as well as, having those clear, defined responsibilities and accountability pieces. I think that's really great advice. And one of the last pieces that I like to ask those who are kind of chatting with me are, what is that piece of advice that you've received as an entrepreneur, either just like the best piece of advice that you have received as an entrepreneur, or the advice that you give to entrepreneurs who are wanting to start a business, who own a business?
Yeah. I've got a lot of advice over the years with this. I mean, this is not my first go round with starting a company. I talked about my dad having a asphalt paving company growing up. What I didn't mention is that I started an asphalt paving company myself back in the mid 90s, and and failed miserably at it, right? For a lot of reasons, but it's one of the things that helped me grow as a executive in business and as an entrepreneur as well, those experiences. But, I'm a very analytical person. And so in the past, it could take me a very long time of analyzing, planning, and analyzing some more before I moved on an idea or opportunity. And so the best advice I can give someone thinking about becoming a business owner is to, first of all, definitely create a business plan and analyze that opportunity. But don't get analysis paralysis, right? Don't get stuck in analysis, right? I used to be a ready, aim, fire type of person, right? Ready, aim, fire. That was me, right? And I wanted to make sure that everything was lined up before I fired. My advice to them is to be a ready, fire, aim person. This might seem kind of backwards, but don't waste time trying to hit the bullseye. Just get on the board because you can make adjustments later, right? The key is to just get moving on that idea. Do some planning, do some, analysis, and then just get moving on that idea. You can make adjustments as you go. No one hits a home run out of the park first up at bat, well, some people do, but rarely does that happen. So that's some of the best advice I can give people. I had to take that advice, and I got that advice from someone else. They're like, Bruce, you are always over analyzing everything. You just got to get moving on some of this stuff.
I love that. I also think that this entrepreneurs, I feel like sometimes has a lot of perfectionists in there. So I do understand how a lot of those who are currently owning a company or are thinking about company have that perfectionist need. Before they put anything out, they want it to be perfect. And sometimes just putting it out that really doesn't make it perfect. So I think that's great advice. And I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with us today about your startup story. So if there's anyone who's listening that is interested in reaching you, what would be the best place to connect with you on?
Yeah, so they can, connect with us on Facebook, just the Growth Coach of Northern Delaware on Facebook. You can give us a call at any time in our office or email us, at 302-317-9057, or shoot me a quick email. Love to hear from you. Love to chat, about your ideas. If you got some great opportunities or ideas about how to be successful, I love that because I don't mind borrowing other people's ideas. But shoot me an email at Rushton, Rushton, at thegrowthcoach.com.
All right. I'm putting that in the chat. All right. So that put in the chat if I be Rushton at thegrowthcoach.com. And also make sure to follow the Growth Coach of Northern Delaware on Facebook to connect further and learn more about how you could take advantage of what Bruce offers to businesses. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's startup story. I hope you and your family stay healthy and warm in this snow. So have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.